Final hour overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan, PJ Carlesimo later in the hour on Darko Rajakovic. His rant last night, the last 2-minute report came out, and the NBA is claiming 2 calls actually were wrong, and they were wronged against the Lakers. So that's going over well.
Got to be kidding me.
I'm not. Yeah, it appears as if they reviewed the tape and they said the Lakers should have got a couple of calls they actually didn't get.
Wow.
So that's
Dude,
going
a bigger
over well.
kick in the pills, man. That is a bigger kick in the pills to say that. To have what is that, a report?
Yeah, well, they do it after every game. They do the last 2-minute report where they review the officiating. And a lot of times it's a kick in the junk because you watch it, they get calls wrong, and then 24 hours later, the NBA is like, yeah, we got it wrong. Sorry about that. Like, it doesn't do anything for anybody. You can't go back and replay the final 2 minutes.
But I mean, for Darko, his next scrum, you ask him, like, what do you think of the report? Like, do you not?
I think he'll probably be asked about it. I am curious what he says before the game tonight, because I have never seen Darko Rajakovic with anything but uber positivity.
I don't think he goes back to the well tonight. He's
no, you got to let it go.
I'm not talking about last night.
You got to let it go.
I hope there's a reporter named Doug there. Like if he
there will be. Doug Smith will be there. I mean, he was in attendance last night.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doug.
Crazy.
Thank you,
Doug.
Look at how mad he was.
I'm
glad he did it. He needed to do it. It's like that's when he became an NBA coach, a head coach. And he just said, I'm not putting up with this garbage, man.
And it was genuine, man. That's another thing that I really appreciate.
That guy's job is his whole life is based on wins and losses. And when you jam him up like that, like that's a coach's life, man. Your whole life goes up and down with wins and losses. And you're trying to do something and dig out of a hole and you get jammed up like that, you are so mad.
Yeah, and they've been playing well too, right? They've been winning ball games since the trade. Things are starting to move in the right direction. He's taken over from a legend in Nick Nurse, right? He's trying to implement his own system, his own culture, and they end up losing by a point last night, and he had a legitimate gripe. The officiating was a joke last night on a multiple fronts. And, a discrepancy of 21 free throw shots in a quarter, we don't see that. It's literally not, it has not happened in the NBA this year. And it's the Lakers versus the Raptors, LeBron versus Siakam, AD versus Scotty Barnes.
Scotty Barnes, who is all-star.
Scotty Barnes.
There's a lot of discrepancy there. And Darko, he let it all out last night.
Give me Scotty Barnes one more time. I just love it so much.
Scotty Barnes, who is all-star.
All right, PJ Carlesimo later in the hour. Darren Dreger here in a couple of moments. Cory Perry's been reinstated. Do you think, if he wants to play, assuming he wants to play, do you think he gets signed between now and March 8th, the trade deadline?
I would look into what happened, and with full transparency, I would make a decision. And you would have to fight against cancel culture, because I don't think Cory Perry should be thrown in a dumpster saying you can never do anything again in your life. I don't know what occurred. I don't know what caused it to occur, but I would research it and talk to him, and I would make an assessment. But I don't think Cory Perry deserves to be thrown in a garbage dumpster.
I agree.
In saying that, I don't know what he did.
Well, that's the thing. You obviously have to do the research. You have to sit down with him. You have to sit down with his representatives, go through with what happened. And if you can live with it, you move forward, because I think he would be a valuable addition to somebody farther down on the lineup. Mm-hmm. And he's a Hall of Fame player. Obviously made a mistake, came out and apologized. But again, we don't know what the mistake is. So it's hard for me to judge on that. If you can live with the mistake, and if the league can live with the mistake, and everybody around him, all of that, then I think
you got to put the blinders on, Noodles. You got to say, I'm not listening to the backlash about this, because everyone, and the scary thing is people don't know what he did. They don't know the information, but they're just going to make a judgment saying, how could you dare sign that guy and bring him into your locker room?
Yeah,
I would you have to sign him and say, we're moving on with this player.
I mean, I would suggest the fact that the league has reinstated him means the league knows. He's been transparent with them. They know what's up. Here's Darren Dreger, our TSN Hockey Insider. What can you tell us about Perry and his future, Dregs?
Very little. To be fair, I just listened to what you guys were saying, and I hear you. I guess what's curious about this is that, Cory, as far as I know, requested the meeting with Commissioner Bettman. It's not like he was banned or been exiled. So there was no reinstatement. There's no clearance. There's a grievance that is to be filed or isn't going to be filed by the Players Association. So he can sign with the team. We know that. Chicago terminated his contract. But as you guys just talked about, yeah, he'd be a great ad. But you can't say he'd be a great ad and then say, but we don't know what he did. Don't you have to know what he did?
Yeah, of course.
We don't.
Yeah.
Like we like the presumption out there, and I'm in this field because I've heard smatterings of what it might be. Doesn't sound terrible, but I'm not the judge and jury in this case. So if I'm a team that is interested in Cory Perry, and God, how many teams would there be? Because of his playing resume and what he does in the playoffs, there'd be so many. I'd want to know every single detail based on the culture that we live in and the world that these players play in as athletes. So I don't know. It's an interesting twist, but it's almost like it served notice on something that maybe didn't need to be served. Again, I'll repeat myself here, but the league didn't feel like they had to clear Cory Perry. He hadn't been suspended. He hadn't been banned. So the news comes out that he can sign. Well, yeah, he can sign. But I think that any team that has interest, and there'd be many, would want to know exactly what went down, because a year from now, a month from now, a week from now, they don't want to get caught up in something that they weren't aware of.
Yeah, I think obviously he'd have to be very transparent. They'd have to know all the details. And if it's nothing illegal, if it was a team issue, which it clearly sounds like it was, and Chicago decided we're terminating, we're moving away from you, it doesn't fit our standards, I think someone will end up signing him. I mean, this would suggest to me what you just said, Dregs, that he requested the meeting with Bettman. He wants to play. Like, that's what it would suggest to me, because that was up for debate, too. Does he just disappear, get me out of here? Like, he wants to play, and if he wants to play, someone will sign him. I'd be shocked if someone didn't.
Yeah. Agreed. No, he wants to play, and he will make a team better. And I have always loved Cory Perry. Like, the way he plays the game, the way he draws people into the fight, all of that. Again, his playoff record is pretty significant in terms of what he can provide. His role on any team that he's played on, as once a 50-goal scorer, and then now perennially of late in his career, the depth that he provides and what he can do, when given opportunity. I get all that. I just, in a world that we live in where everybody wants to be uber careful, that's what I'm saying. I don't have any information. It's not like I'm sitting here going, oh, well, hold on a minute. Here's what Cory did, and I think I have the goods. I don't have that for a second. I'm just telling you what teams out there are asking and wondering and whatnot. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, exactly. And ultimately, this will be something that the owners of the team will have to make a decision on, right?
Yeah.
And the prospective president and CEOs of the teams, which I guess if it's the Maple Leafs willing to call on Cory Perry, that's going to be Keith Pelley as of tomorrow, reportedly. Dregs, what do you make of Keith Pelley coming on as president and CEO of MLSE, and how does it affect Brendan Shanahan and I guess Masai Ujiri, et cetera, within that realm?
It's an interesting story, right? When it kind of first came across my radar earlier today, I was like, wow, that is interesting. But more from we know Keith Pelley. I don't know him well. Like, I didn't come up into the TSN world until after Keith was gone. But we've all followed his career, and we know what he's done, and most recently as the European Tour commissioner and all of that. You wonder, what's in it for him to come back and do this? But I mean, he's a guy that wants to be part of something bigger. And when you look at everything under the MLSE umbrella, there's a lot of things going on. It's not just the obvious, but specific to for my purposes, keep it in the hockey realm. I mean, I don't think that he's coming in worrying about any of that. I think that he would look at Brendan Shanahan and think, all right, we're in good hands there. And in fairness, Keith would also, take stock of the board, have good conversation with Larry Tannenbaum and all those who are heavily involved, and then go from there. So I'm moving forward. Maybe a year from now, guys, we have a different conversation, but I just think in the scope of things, this is a good thing for MLSE.
Yeah, it's. Like you said, he's got a media history. He was heavily involved with the Argos, the DP World Tour. So he comes in as a name that has value behind it, and people are well aware of his history. We'll see what comes of it with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, and if he gets announced, tomorrow or later this week, I guess there's a chance his first Leaf game he'll be in attendance to see Ilya Samsonov play. And I wonder how he might respond to that decision. What is going on here, Dregs? What is your understanding of where this falls in line, Samsonov coming back up, in terms of the plan from Trey Living, Keefe, et cetera, to get him going again?
I think this had more to do, well, it's twofold. It's one, you're gauging how Samsonov has gone through the past week and the work that he's done with the coaching staff, the work that he's done off ice and all of that, and then wanting to get Hadelby back into a game, right? Like, that kid needs to play. And the way that Martin Jones has backstopped the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're probably not giving that net away. So best chance for Samsonov is to come back into the mix, practice with the Maple Leafs, get back up the stride, and maybe you try him again. I mean, they're committed to Ilya Samsonov for the remainder of the year. So
I know, but Drags, if he stinks to join out the next time, it might be game over, wouldn't you say? Like, I don't know how many times you can go back to that well.
Well, it's almost Noodle's way in here. Like, it feels like we're past that. But, for whatever reason, and maybe it's the American League goalie, they want to get back and get playing, because him, sitting on the bench in the National Hockey League, when Marty Jones gets crease every night, isn't a push in his favor either. So I think it was a kind of combination of things.
Yeah, I just, my whole thing is they clearly laid out when they sent him not down, sent him away, or just gave him the reset. They said publicly, we have a plan in place. Okay, so this is the first 7 to 8 days of the plan. I'm wondering, is the next step going to lay out the next step of the plan? Like, okay, now the next step is the next 10 days, we're going to give him 2 starts, or what? There is a plan in place. We're not privy to it, but they were so transparent with the first part of the plan. Like, are they going to be behind closed doors for the next one? Or is it kind of like, that's where my mind goes to, because if they feel comfortable enough that in this 8-day reset that he was able to get away from the game, maybe just have a mental reset where it's like, okay, we believe in the ability of the player. It was between the ears, So I'm just more curious as to what is the bigger picture. And they've laid the plan out, the first step of it. Okay, what's step 2 of it?
They can't hide him, though, anymore, though, Noodles.
I agree.
Step one, he was at Coca-Cola Coliseum or whatever. Step 2 is at Scotiabank Arena. I mean,
you're right. Like, I'm not.
But step 3 is down to Coca-Cola again, and God knows where you're going to go from there, Hayes.
Well, unless he plays well. I mean, that is possible. I'm not holding my breath.
I want that more than anything. It's tough to buy into him coming up and playing well. There's no other way around that take.
Like, what's the harm in him playing a game or two? And now we're talking about Samsonov in the American League.
Well,
right?
Maybe it's the Jack Campbell thing where he went down there and he stunk the joint out, Dregs, and everybody really started wetting their pants.
But he started, like, Jack Campbell started strong. Like, he had a game or two where he was really good initially. So if you're the Leafs, then that's, you got the market juiced a little bit, then you bring him back up. But Samsonov's coming back in, and inevitably he's going to have to play. Martin Jones can't run the table here until Joseph Woll gets back up to speed off the high ankle. So imagine how much scrutiny there's going to be behind everything that Ilya Samsonov does when he gets his next start, whenever that is. It's going to be a tough one.
Dregs, what do you think those Sharks are working on in practice today?
Well, that's a good question, because where do you start and where does it end? We watched that game last night, and it was painful to watch. And look, I mean, there are good people at the San Jose Sharks. They have good players. We've talked about Mackenzie Blackwood, who came in relief, but, I mean, there were a couple of goaltending wonders there, and, I mean, you can't hang that loss on the goaltending. Come on. It was, abysmal across the board. But I'm you and I are sitting there going, what is going on here?
It was insane, man. It was you don't even know what emotion to direct towards the Sharks. Do you feel bad for them? Are you pissed at them?
Yeah.
Is the manager not doing enough to support? You don't even know where to go because their lineup's not good enough. And it looked like they didn't even try. Fell short of effort. It looked like they didn't try, which is a scary thing in that league.
Well, our Noodles, I want to bring you into this too, Brian. Sorry, I don't mean to just throw you under the bus here. But so I think it was the McCabe goal where Marner's got the puck. We didn't even talk about it because there was just so much going on, and obliterating the San Jose Sharks isn't going to help. Mackenzie Blackwood comes in relief. Marner's got the puck on the left side. Blackwood is looking at him. Well, he can clearly see he's not going to shoot. He knows the pass is coming across.
Right.
And he dodges and kind of looks and sort of. And I think it was McCabe, wasn't it, who scored the goal? And
it was McCabe,
it was almost an empty netter. What is going on there? Is he just at a point where, well, I knew I wasn't starting this game, and the game is in hand, and mentally I'm not, I'm checked out. I feel like, that is kind of the sense of a lot of players in San Jose right now.
Yeah, going at that goal in particular, if you actually look at it from the back angle, you've got Nyes in front. Blackwood doesn't track the puck. He's late on the play because he doesn't see, Marner does a little button hook there. But when you come in off the bench, you're still trying to find a rhythm to the game. You're trying to stop the bleeding, all of that type of stuff. But you're he was clearly delayed in his reaction. It was, McCabe had nothing but a 4x6 to put into. Mm-hmm. And Black was the puck went over there. I should probably react now. Listen, I like Blackwood.
It was tough.
So do I, yeah.
But here's the thing about Blackwood. Here's the thing about some of these Carter Hart, some of the guys that I've liked for goaltending. It's hard to judge them when they've been in losing situations. Blackwood was in New Jersey when they were retooling, rebuilding. Now he's in San Jose, and he's getting taken to the woodshed every night. Do you know, we don't know how good this guy can be. How I watched this John Gibson. He's like a shell of his former self, right? He's been beaten down out there. Sometimes you need a change of, I'm a Blackwood fan. I really, I think he's got tremendous skill. I think he's got good ability.
But when a guy does that, Noodles, would you take a chance on Gibson? You always talk about the influence of a guy like Hitch, how he enhanced goaltenders' numbers.
Right.
If you had a strong defensive team, would you say Gibson could be the guy, or is he so damaged with what's happened to him in Anaheim that you don't know if he could get back on track?
It's that old saying, is the grass greener on the other side? All this guy knows is losing in Anaheim. That's the you watch this guy's body language. I watched him play the other day. I think it was Edmonton, or I can't remember. He gave up a pile of goals, and the body language. There was a play where he had given up on the puck from behind the net. He gave up. He was turned around. That was Edmonton game. He had given up on the puck. I'm like, what are you doing? It just, I think sometimes they need a different scenario. And same thing, we have this debate. Adin Hill won a Stanley Cup last year. The Vegas Golden Knights felt like they were good enough to have, if they have good goaltending, just good goaltending, which Adin Hill gave it to him. You don't need You don't need the Vasilevsky every night if you feel like your team is good enough. So it's hard to judge these guys in tough situations because I'm sitting there watching Blackwood give up, maybe a goal he should stop, where if he was in a good situation, probably wouldn't be giving up those goals because you're not giving up, the Riley goal where Riley could
right
have
down Broadway.
Drink and a cigarette before he puts it away. You know?
No, it's tough. That's a difficult part of the evaluation, and I would assume everyone will be available if the price is right, and we'll see if people come calling. With Darren Dreger at TSN Hockey Insight, I want to ask you about McDavid's comments last night because you know where I stand on review. I thought last night was an embarrassment. I thought it was ridiculous that it took that long for them to take away really the one goal that led to a spark in the whole evening. It was a really low event game, and it was a great goal that gets ripped away because Draisaitl's a millimeter offside after 6 minutes of them reviewing it. And then McDavid was effectively mocking the rule and the way the process went out last night, which I have an appreciation for because generally, he's pretty robotic with answers. He's pretty shy. Pretty dry. Like, he's laughing. He's chuckling. He's actually giving an honest answer. Like, that sounded like Connor from St. Albert sitting around the table with the boys. And I love it. And, like, if I'm in the front office in New York, I'm thinking, that's our poster boy on, in Chicago. I think that game was on ESPN.
Goofing on our process.
Mocking on the process. What does it matter that he said what he said? And where do we stand on that process at this point?
100% it matters, right? Because it is the face of the National Hockey League coming out with that level of criticism. But if I'm Colin Campbell, the head of hockey operations, or Gary Bettman, the commissioner of the National Hockey League, I'm like wagging my finger at every general manager who's been around forever to say, I told you so. Because we're a million miles away from Matt Duchene being 13 feet offside, right? We're a million miles away. So when you introduce, like the review process, then this is what you end up with. And I fully agree with Connor. I fully agree with it. But you know what? Today's current general manager can't agree on what the happy medium is. Is it a timeline? Is it a space? Do you make that blue line smaller? Like, they've already altered, the skate in the air nonsense. Like, what do you do next? And I get it. I fully get it. But I don't know what the fix is, because once you initiate the video review, then ultimately this is where you're at. And where do we go next? I guess we're going to find out. But the next GM meeting is the March meeting, and that March meeting always has some teeth. I guarantee you they talk about it, not because McDavid sputtered off, but because it's an ongoing issue and the stars of the game are weighing in.
Yeah, that was wild last night. Edmonton, they end up winning anyways. So, again, McDavid, it's not like he was pissed off. They got 2 points. And that's just him being on. Like, if it cost them, I might be like, wow, he's really bent out of shape. They won the game. And he still said what he said. Yeah. So, all right, Dregs. All right, man. Well, we'll see where this goes. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Okay, boys. Have a good one.
Darren Dreger, our TSN Hockey Insider.
I think we got to do a segment. We talk about the no balls open. Well, I mention it with you, Hayes, a lot.
Yeah.
I think we need to do a leaderboard every couple weeks. We could put the refs in LA at 27 under, the review process at 26 under. We could add golf music, display the leaderboard, just the first page.
Yeah.
Cutter Gauthier, we might throw him in there at 19 under.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's Tiger in 2000 right now.
That kid deserves that. Yeah.
And if you're really down on somebody, you give him 28 under par, whatever you want. But I think every couple weeks, now that we're getting into the swing of golf, it's just the leaderboard from our favorite tournament.
That's fair. We could do that. We could do it like a top 3 or top 5 every couple of weeks and just go, what are we seeing in the sports world?
Yeah. I think the refs in LA would be 27 under
Thank
par.
you, Doug. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Scotty Barnes.
Scotty Barnes.
Scotty Barnes, who's all-star.
It's the best.
It's so great.
Yeah.
And man, was he frothing at the mouth last night,
that's
Darko.
what he was. That's the great term for it. He was frothing at the mouth. Like, he couldn't breathe. He was so mad.
Yeah.
Like, he had Chevy guy in there that he had that pause where he was trying to catch his breath. He was so mad.
Yeah.
Like he was coming out of his skin.
Technology and stuff is Scotty Barnes. Technology and stuff. Yeah. You know what? Speaking of golf, we should probably do a 3-pack for the Sony Open. You know, I got my best bets. Why don't I fire them up right now? Brought to you by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Going back to the well, my man Ludwig did not show up last week in Kapalua. He did not have a great week, but I have Ludwig Aberg finishing top 10. My man Sahith Theegala was great last week. I think he's primed for a massive season. Yeah. Massive season. I got Sahith finishing top 20 and Hideki Matsuyama top 40. There's your parlay. Hideki won this 2 years ago. Remember that 3-wood he hit on the into 18?
Playoff, I think.
It wasn't a playoff. It wasn't a playoff. He took the corner on 3-wood. It was just butter. He ended up eagling the hole to win the playoff. So that's it.
Are those your guys that you're
Well, this is my best bets. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and find thousands of ways to play. Please play responsibly, 19 plus, physically located in Ontario. We can do a 3-pack at the end of the show. You want to do that? A 3-pack each?
I'm in.
Because it's good field, man. There's a lot.
It is a good field. Well, those guys fly all the way out there to play the Century. They're like, I might as well play the next week.
Yeah. I can't understand why anyone would leave. Like, I saw Mackenzie Hughes. He tweeted, I think his car got stolen when he got home, which sucks.
That's tough.
And Mac was at Kapalua. I'm like, why don't you stick around and play the Sony? Like, why wouldn't you? You're in Hawaii. But, a bunch of guys go over and play the Kapalua and they take off.
Dude, imagine flying out to Hawaii for the Sony Open and, like, just miss the cut. Like, what a crap piece. That's
yeah. It's a massive.
It's not exactly. Yeah, it's a massive commitment for a trip.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Like that flight to Hawaii, especially if you're an East Coast guy, like if you're playing in Florida or Carolina or something like that.
It's 10 hours.
Yeah, it's a long way. All right, PJ Carlesimo will join us on Darko's rant last night. Does he have something behind that, premise? What does he make of the Raptors so far? There's a new Netflix show coming out, similar to the one they did with the quarterbacks. And I cannot believe one guy's going to be involved in this. We'll tell you who it is. Well, I can believe it, but he shouldn't be. We'll get into that more.
Oh, he is.
Of course he is. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, we'll get to a 3-pack for the Sony Open later in the hour. Raptors back in action tonight against the Clippers. Darko Rajakovic. I guess he's still probably pretty pissed off about what happened last night. I don't think he'll show it pregame or during the game tonight. You got to turn the page. But he was not happy. And to chat about it, we're joined now by a man that knows, I'm sure, what it's like to be on the right side of calls, wrong side of calls, longtime NBA coach, ESPN NBA analyst, one of our favorites, PJ Carlesimo. What'd you make of Darko Rajakovic postgame last night, PJ?
I identified with it for sure. I've been there. Mm-hmm. It was a tough game. I was watching the game. ESPN Radio's doing Lakers Phoenix tomorrow, so I was watching the game. They got a tough whistles, no question about it. It's frustrating when you play well. They played so well. Those guys stepped up. They made a couple of shots. I mean, AD hasn't even been shooting threes. He's been shooting like one a game, and he makes a couple, including a huge one late, and Bron stepped up and made a big one late. So it was tough. I thought a couple times they went to the basket strong and got nothing to show for it, and there were a couple of late whistles on the other end. You hate late whistles, but, when one ref passes on a call and the other guy, sees it and or lady thinks that they need to blow the whistle, but it was tough. But the the killer play was the play when you commit a foul, which did he hit him with an elbow in the face or in the chin? Yes, but that was not. I can't believe that's the intent of the rule, and that's the way it should be. I was actually going to call Monty McCutcheon today to talk to him about it, just to see what his reaction was, or how the league was that in the last 2 minutes. I didn't.
No, I don't believe so. That was the the foul, Quickly's foul, where that was his sixth foul. He was going to foul out anyway. But I agree with you, and you could see Quickly kept his composure. PJ was talking to the refs. He's like, "That's a basketball move. Like, I'm making my way towards the paint."
Went from the sixth foul, unless I'm getting senile, so I forget stuff. But not only was it the sixth foul, didn't they also make it a flagrant?
Yeah,
on
they
top
did.
Of that?
Yeah, it was a flagrant one.
Yes,
yeah.
I mean, it was that call was a monster call, and he was penetrating. He was by the guy. Maybe that's the rule. Like, I'd have gone totally ballistic right then, because it was it could have gone the other way for a basket or free throws for Toronto. I forget whether he made the shot or not, or if he even took the shot after they blew the whistle. But you talk about turning the game around, it was amazing. And then when you hear Darko, post game talking about the discrepancy in fouls, and a lot of people complain when you play the Lakers. To give the Lakers their due, they're number one in the league in fewest fouls committed. And Toronto's 5. So you had two of the best teams in the league at not committing fouls, and they made a couple of crazy ones. There was two that RJ, who's playing really, really well, but if you remember, twice they had layups down at the other end. I mean, the play was over. You had to either tackle the guy or just let him go. He just kind of reached in. It was like a real soft foul. He did that twice. There were a couple, I think, atypical fouls. Now, again, RJ and Emmanuel haven't been there the whole year, so maybe they're, that's something that Darko preaches and that they're not quite up to speed on yet. But when you look at them and they're fifth in fouls committed, they expect most nights to have an advantage. Like when you work that hard on not committing fouls, you're hoping you're going to have an advantage of free throws, and far from an advantage. Like last night was, a landslide the other way. But as I said, I did not agree with a bunch of the calls. But it does need to be said that the Lakers are number one in the league in fewest fouls committed. So it's something they do well also. But I thought it was a really tough whistle last night myself.
So, PJ, Darko loses his mind, and every coach wants to blow off some steam. They know they can't go to the well too often. Is there any benefit for the Raptors in him to do that? Does anyone hear that and say, you know what, that might have been a screw job, we have to watch that? Or is that just one incident where it's like, please
influence yeah. I don't think you influence the refs in the league. Usually it costs you some dollars. Maybe it brings it to, the crew that's coming. For sure, the crew that's working the game tonight against the Clippers saw that and talked about it. I mean, the league doesn't operate in a vacuum with their officials. Like, when something is said, particularly, what that was like post-game, they don't have to be told themselves. But if by some miracle they didn't see the clip themselves last night, it was pointed out to them today. It was like, hey, this was said, blah, blah, blah. So just to make them aware. But realistically, in terms of impact, no, I don't think it'll have an impact. I think the guys in our league now particularly, and it's gotten better and better over the years, they operate in a vacuum. They do what they want to do. Maybe some guys every once in a while are influenced by the crowd or a road game or something like that. But for the most part, they do what they're taught to do, or they try and do what they're taught to do. And you can't get to them, if you will. There was a time in college when, your conference officials, if a couple schools didn't like an official, he would not belong or she would not belong in the league. There's no question. The NBA officials are above that. If they get rid of somebody in the league, it's because the front office, the people that administer to the officiating, now and again, if all of a sudden 20, a majority of the coaches in the league are all complaining about the same official, they're going to look hard at that. There's no question. But the coaches don't have control over the officials in the NBA. I don't fault Darko for what he said, but the only realistic impact it might have is it might cost him some money. I don't think it's going to make any difference in the. But I'll tell you what. There's another major reason, and it might have been the primary reason he did it. His players really appreciated that. I guarantee you, the players knew what he said, and if he turns out he gets fined, he gets fined. But they appreciate the fact that he stood up for them, and it's not just talking to them with the closed door after the game's over. It's standing up and saying, "Hey, enough's enough. This wasn't right. We should have won this game, and I didn't like the call." So I think from that standpoint, it's very important. But for impacting the whistle in the future, no, I just don't think that happens in the league.
Yeah, I loved what Darko said to stand up for his team. But do you believe in the current, we'll call it, cycle of refs right now? I mean, I know there are some grizzled guys that just get cycled out of the game because of age and seniority, and then the newer refs, the new, we'll call them the new school refs. Are you comfortable with them, or are they a little bit more thin-skinned, or do you believe they get the job done by committee?
No, I don't think they're thin-skinned. I think the guys really work at it. It's funny, I was down at the G League showcase where they had, all 31 or 32, however many G League teams there are now, counting the Ignite and the Capitanes from Mexico City. But all the officials were there, and the veteran officials. Monty was there, Bennett Salvatore, Duke Callahan, Eddie F. So, I mean, so many of the guys that work, they're working with these young officials. They work with them all the time. They hold them to a they get evaluated more, and there's more feedback than there ever was. Now, some people will tell you maybe that's not necessarily the best thing. I would, every year, like when at the head coaches meeting in September before the league starts, you talk about it, and you go back and forth with Monty or whoever happens to be in charge of the officiating now. And I would always say, hey, give me one of those old guys, put him in a wheelchair at half court. And sitting there at half court, they're going to get more calls right than some of the young guys or girls. But that's because of the fact that they've been doing it for so long, and they're that good. I hate to see those guys go. I understand when they get old. I understand when they can't make the time in the 2-mile run or whatever the hell it is. But I think most coaches would tell you when you're sitting there, particularly in a playoff game, and in the old days, you often didn't know who the refs were till they walked on the floor. Unless you're ball boys that took care of them in the locker room, and I never wanted to find out. You found out when you walked out on the floor, and when I think in most cases when you see one of those grizzled guys or even a veteran lady that you're describing, like Violet or Dee, who were the first two, you're saying, thank God, I know what I'm going to get tonight. This person's ref hundreds, if not thousands of games and hundreds of playoff games, and you know what it's going to be. It's hard for the young because everybody jumps on him. You got a crew, you usually have one veteran official on these regular season crews, and invariably it's the young guy that gets yelled at. I mean, it could be the exact same call, 2 different possessions. The old guy makes one call, and a little bit later, the young guy makes the same call, and you're screaming at the young guy. You don't scream at the older guy. It's hard to break in this league.
Right.
It really is. And I think they're doing as good a job as you can. I say the league, in terms of administering it and really testing them, and they bring them up through the G League. That's the G League has really become, in the same way that it's helping the teams and helping front office people and trainers and people like that get real experience in the G League setting before they're ready to work for the big team. And in the beginning, there was kind of like a bias against it, if you will. It was called the D League in those days before Gatorade got involved, and players didn't want to go down. You never thought of sending a guy that was injured down in the D League to get him ready the way they do in baseball. Now it's accepted, and everybody understands that it makes sense. The best possible way to get somebody back from a rehab, and the league has really come a long way, and I think it's really benefiting the officials. And you got a number of officials that work back and forth between both. They're kind of like getting ready to break them in. They're not full-time yet in the NBA, but they're the better officials in the G League, so they're getting them ready. So they're trying. But believe me, Darko's, his language was a lot better than mine would have been, and B, I'm sure he showed great restraint before this, but that was really, really a tough game, and that was a loss. I mean, that's a really hard one to address your team after. There's not a heck of a lot you can say. They played their butts off. They deserved to win the game, and it just didn't happen.
Always great catching up with you, PJ. Thank you for doing this.
Great being with you guys. I wish I'd be up there in person one of these times. So get them up into the playoffs, and I'll get a chance to come visit Toronto again.
You got it. Thank you, PJ.
Thank you very much. Good being with you.
PJ Carlesimo of ESPN.
Did he chug a beer or something?
Yeah, well, I think he was waiting. I threw him off because it was a quick goodbye. That's on me. Maybe he was expecting a question that he was going to listen to. Yeah. Sometimes on a goodbye, I might be like, all right, PJ, we'll leave it there. Great chatting with you, man. It's been, where that was kind of all right, PJ, see you later. And I jammed him. It was a quick goodbye, and he went in for a sip. I want to mention that Netflix is creating an NBA documentary series, kind of modeled after the quarterback show that was.
And the one guy that has no time for this in his life and doesn't want any part of it, just can't.
Well, let me get through the names, all right?
Minutes.
Domantas Sabonis, I can understand that. Right? His dad was in the NBA. He's a Sacramento King. Anthony Edwards, young guy, small market.
In movies,
a
star.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler's a big, burgeoning social media star in Miami. I got that. Jason Tatum, he's up in Boston, face of a historic organization. And LeBron James. Like, why is LeBron in? Netflix has got to be ecstatic. Don't get me wrong. They love that LeBron's in here. Yeah. Why does LeBron need this?
Dude, it's like almost like Netflix. I'm telling you, it's almost like someone from Netflix or the league, Silver, would have said, I just got to ask you this because I know the answer's no, but I had to run it by you. Any interest?
Yeah.
And he got back, yes, I'll do it.
It's crazy, man. Like, he's always complaining about how much attention's on him.
365 attention.
Yeah, but, like, he loves it. He loves, like, if
Noodles,
it's not
he just
about
agreed
him.
to do this. Why would he do it if there's too much attention on him?
Because he loves attention. He claims too much attention on him. If there's not enough, he'll do something so that he gets attention.
Yeah.
How many times is there something else going on in the league and he's just got to stick his nose in it or make
not
a comment
just that,
about
Noodles.
it?
Like, if something goes on in another sport too, like NFL or something, he'll be like, "That's the MVP." Like, he's got to. If it's slow in the NBA, he's got to weigh in on other stuff too.
Exactly. He likes attention, and which is weird because he gets it all the time, anyways. But aren't you curious to see behind the scenes of how this guy works?
Yeah. I mean, I think the nature of the show, though, like LeBron, I've seen LeBron. I've seen how he lives.
I almost know what his act is.
I think it'll be more he's going to get his son involved. It'll be a lot of Bronny. It'll be promotion for him and his other boy.
I'm going to predict something, that there's going to be a few scenes where you're like, this guy is so heroic. Like, he's going to know the camera's on, put a show on.
Yes.
Like, there are going to be a few times where you're like, that is unbearable.
100%. Like, I know everything I need to know about LeBron. I want to know more about Anthony Edwards. I'm curious.
Right.
I wonder what it's like being Jason Tatum. You talk about the Celtics. They're all-time greats. KG, Pierce, Bird, go down the list, Bill Russell. Like, what's it like being the man in Boston? I know everything about LeBron. Like, and anything that is actually shown, I think he will have full exclusive rights over in terms of editing and
I would pay money for two guys. You guys tell me, maybe you can come out with two, but I would love to see a James Harden one.
Yes.
Just to see like
yes.
that. And then the other one's Kawhi. Like, I'd like to see what this guy's life is like.
Yeah, I would like to see how boring Kawhi's life is and how nuts Harden's is.
Exactly. Like, I would. And now you never know. Kawhi's life could be very, very exciting away from, but he's just very private. But those are two guys that come to mind immediately. Harden. Could you imagine, like, Netflix having to get waivers and he's at a gentleman's club in Dallas or something, and they're like, okay, we can't go in here, and he's back in a private room or what? Like that. If that was a pay-per-view, that would break the pay-per-view.
I'm with you. Then you cut to a shot of Kawhi staring at the wall, and you're like, what is this cat up to, man? But it would be a great compare and contrast. And yet, the Clippers are winning a lot of ball games, man. Like, the Clippers, like Kevin Durant's another one that, like, he's complaining because it's not going well in Phoenix. But he's one I'm almost surprised didn't put his hand up, because he's always complaining about coverage and this and that and the other. And then he gets himself involved all the time.
Yeah.
I'm just.
He's a nothing guy right now, as talented as he is and a great a legacy as he has. I don't ever hear that guy's name.
No, because Phoenix is not, it's a decent market, but it's not a massive market, and they're not playing well. They're a game above 500, but they're a three-man show, and that's it. Beal's been injured a lot.
But they never are, yeah. Beal's always injured, and it's never been a three-man show.
That's right. It's just like Brooklyn. Right, like outside of those years in Golden State where he got his rings and he was and he's an unbelievable player, talent. But this guy's career is going to be fascinating to look back on. Like, the Kevin Durant career is going to be dissected for decades. All right, we'll come back with a 3-pack for the Sony. Look ahead to Clippers, Raptors again tonight. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, rapid fire, 3-pack each. Sony.
Let me just
Hawaii.
fire some off because I don't think you're going to pick the guys that I'm picking. I'm just going to name some guys I like.
Okay.
Fitzy. I like Russell Henley. I like Brian Harmon, Corey Connors,
Okay.
and Denny McCarthy.
Ooh, Denny. I like Denny. That's a good pick. I was going to take Connors. I'll take Ludwig. If you're going to take a 5-pack, I'll take Alberg.
Dude, he's Tiger, man.
Yeah.
He's the Tiger pick.
He is. I'm going to take Tyrrell Hatton. You know who's playing this weekend?
Dude, take a shot at Billy Zoltz.
I was just about to say I'll take Bill
He is
Zalatoris.
But the last time he played golf, he was a mess
Disaster.
at Tigers tournament.
He was at the Hero, dude. He finished like 15 over par or something.
Dude, he was blowing that golf ball all over Bahamas.
Yeah, I'm concerned. I
Take
don't.
him.
All right, I'll take Bill Zalatoris. How many did you take?
I think 5.
Yeah, I got Auberg, Hatton, Bill Zalatoris. I'm going to take
Eric Cole's
Sahib.
a sneaky pick.
I'm going to take Thagala. Yeah, Cole, Rookie of the Year. You know who I'll take is I'll take my man Brendan Todd. Brendan Todd.
Dude, you did that to piss me off. You know I can't stand that guy.
The man with 2 first
he will
names.
melt. No, he will melt on Sunday.
Okay, let me get a
guarantee-
Canadian. You take Keegan Bradley. Did you take Keegan? Take
Is he in
Keegan.
the-
He's your boy. I think he's in the field. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take Keegan
All
Bradley.
right, take Keegan, and I'll take Adam Hadwin. So I got
There
a
you go.
Canadian. 6-pack. All
I'll
right.
also take Taylor Pendrith.
Okay.
That's a 7.
All right, I'll take JT Poston.
There you go, the postman.
The
He's
postman.
dialed in.
He is. He's looking good. All right. 7-pack for the Sony. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today, radio, TV, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Thank you, Doug. 4 p.m.
Well, chat, Dad.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug.